waterfall that I don't remember the name to here in Northern California. A lot of bugs out right now for some reason, but it's looking gorgeous. Looking absolutely fantastic. There's also a lot of these really big oak trees here that are just full of moss, really twisty oak trees, so that could be also a possible composition here. But I'll show you the falls. It's just right down here in the trail. Just kind of switchbacks down to the bottom. So yeah, looking forward to this. Looks gorgeous. The past peak autumn color, but I still think we can kind of manage to find some beautiful colors to put in the foreground to get a shot of this awesome waterfall. So also a little something different today with this video. My plan is to get a shot, hopefully hopefully get an image here, and then so half of the video will be on location, and the other half I'm going to take it back into Lightroom and edit it and show you guys how I edit my photos, how I edit a waterfall photo, and kind of my process and what I do to the photo and different stuff like that. So yeah, should be fun. Should be fun. So I'll see you guys when I get down to the bottom of this hill. Right, so I found my composition, and I hope you guys can hear me over this, over the noise of the river here. But it's absolutely gorgeous. I'll show you what I got going on here, but it's quite beautiful, actually. Right, so I thought I would show you guys actually in camera what I'm looking at here. And we got this log kind of leading you up to the main waterfall, and then obviously we got the main fall, and then we got this rock here, and then this rock on the left kind of keeps your eye kind of focused right in the middle and up into the main waterfall. So it's quite beautiful. And then we got these cascades here coming down from the pool up there. This coming all the way down through the frame and then out this way. So quite like this shot. Quite excited to see what I can do with it. So for a photo like this, I think the most important thing about photographing waterfalls is going to be your shutter speed, for sure. You want to make sure that your shutter speed kind of captures what you want with that movement of water. For me, I kind of want some detail. I don't want it too milky, but I do want it soft, but with just enough detail so you can see the texture in the water and stuff. So I'm going to play with my shutter speed a little bit here, and then I'll show you what I come up with, which is probably going to be somewhere around 1/4 of a second. Not too slow, but also not too fast. So, all right, so I don't know if you can see that, but I settled around about half a second at f11 and ISO 200, because it is getting we're slowly losing the light. So I took a few shots already, but take one again. And I'm not focus stacking actually, and I thought I would have to, but I think we'll be okay. The foreground is actually far enough away from the front of the lens that I think focusing on the main waterfall should give me sharpness front to back. So I'm not too worried about having to do a focus stack. But all in all, it's absolutely fantastic in here. But yeah, that's the shot. Just I'll throw it up on screen, and you tell me what you think. Alright, so I'm back at my computer and I got the image loaded up into Lightroom. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you guys how I got the final image that you saw in the video and the edits that I put on the image to just show you how I got there, the process I did, and what I did to the image after Lightroom when I brought it into Photoshop. So let's jump right in. Alright, so now we're in Lightroom. And this right here is the image without the Photoshop adjustments. So this is the Lightroom adjusted image here. So the raw file that's been edited. And as you can see, I'm going to bring up the develop module here. And we'll just go through it together. So basically, what I did here is if I bring, let's see if I can find it. If I reset the image, this is the raw file. This is what it looks like straight out of camera. And as you can see, it's pretty flat. There's not much going on. There's no color. It almost looks like it's desaturated. And that's generally what, sorry, can't talk today. That's generally what the raw files look like. They don't have much color or much detail. So we're gonna bring all that back in Lightroom here. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go down to the lens correction tab and I'm gonna remove the chromatic aberration and then enable the profile corrections. So that's just gonna pretty much remove the distortion from the lens and remove any chromatic aberration if there was any on the image. So then I'm going to go back up to some of the basic adjustments and I think I'm going to give an exposure increase of about 0.15. It's just going to bring a little bit more like life to the image, and then I'm going to adjust the contrast up a little bit, so probably about 21 or so. And then I'm also going to bring down the highlights a bit. As you can tell, the waterfall is pretty, it's not, the highlights aren't clipping here, but it's pretty, I don't know how you say, distracting. Because I do have some interest in the foreground that I want your eye to go to as well. So I'm going to bring down the highlights to about -31 is where I had them. And then I'm also going to increase or bring up the shadows a little bit because it's a little bit dark here behind these rocks. So I'm going to bring up the shadows to about mid-40s or so. We'll do about 47. And then I'm also going to drop the whites a little bit as well. That'll also kind of take less attention off the waterfall and kind of bring your attention down here more. I'm also going to bring up the blacks just a hair so the shadows aren't clipping up here. So now it's looking a little better so far. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the temp by just a little bit, probably about 6,050 or so, because there was a nice ambient warm glow in here, and that's starting to come out, as you can tell if you look closely in about this area. So the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go down to the HSL panel here, and I'm gonna bring up the orange, yellows, and reds, because those are the dominant colors in this photo here. And I'm also gonna increase the luminance of those colors as well. So just bringing that up a hair, and as the yellows as well. That's just gonna give me some really nice pop into those colors in the image. So now we're starting to really bring this image back to life here. With that being said, I'm gonna bring up the vibrance of those colors. About 29 is good. And then just gonna increase the saturation just a little bit to the overall photo. Probably about 17. That looks pretty good there. So now the image is looking pretty nice now. Now we got the color here in the rocks, some of that fall foliage around the waterfall, and then some of the yellow, I don't know what these are, like lily pads, I guess. And then the log here, which is a focal point where I want the eye to go. So the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go down to the sharpening tab, and I'm gonna mask it. So what that's gonna do, mask it to about 26. It's gonna apply sharpening to all the areas of the photos, like all the area of the photo that's not the waterfall or the white water. So after that, I'm gonna come down, I'm gonna apply a -11 vignette. So that what that's going to do is kind of draw your eye into the center of the photo. I actually might even go further, probably a 15. That looks a lot better. So this is looking pretty nice now. I actually quite like it. So I think that does it for, I'll bring up the shadows just a little bit more. Perfect. Just bring up the saturation a little bit more. So this is looking really good. So I think we're done. Oh no, we're not. Actually gonna do a little dodging and burning too to this rock. I don't really like how bright this rock is, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna decrease the saturation by 0.21 of that rock there, and I'm gonna do the same thing to this rock. So what that's gonna do is that's gonna divert your eye even more to the center of this cascade here. So -0.21, 68 feather, and that's looking pretty good. And then I'm going to add another radial filter to the middle section of this water here. And instead of decreasing the exposure, I'm actually going to increase it to about 16 or so. And then just increase the saturation just a little bit. So what that's going to do is just kind of bring your eye right into the center of this photo here. Basically right up to the main waterfall. So now we're done in Lightroom. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to photo, and I'm going to bring it into Photoshop. And I'm going to show you guys what I did in Photoshop to give the waterfall that kind of ethereal, moody, like dramatic look that I'm going for. So I'll let that load, and we'll go into Photoshop. All right, so now that we're in Photoshop, the first thing I'm going to do is generally the first thing I look for is anything that's kind of distracting that I can remove with content aware. And actually, I don't think there's anything that I can remove that won't practically destroy the photograph. So we're going to leave that alone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to the background layer, and I'm going to right click and duplicate it. What I'm doing actually is I'm going to do a Gaussian blur, or what's known as an Orton effect in the industry. So what that's going to do is pretty much give me a blurry photo, and then I'm going to go up to Image, Adjustments, Levels, and I'm going to bring this level here to the left, which is the highlights, just until they start to blow out, which is about right there. And then I'm going to bring the shadow level to the right, so it's going to give me a really contrasty photo. So I'm just going to hit OK. And then I'm going to bring the opacity of this layer down to 0. What that's going to do is just
It's just give your eyes a break, give it a second, because we basically just assaulted this photo with a lot of contrast. So now we're gonna bring it up just a little bit to about 10, I think is good. So if I bring this back to 0, you can see the difference. It's very subtle. Subtlety is key, but it's definitely there. So it just gives it a more ethereal, kind of moody tone that I'm going for. So now that we got that done, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make another layer, and then I'm going to go up to edit. Oops, not stroke. I'm going to go up to edit, fill, and then the content is going to be black. So I'm going to make a black layer over my original photo, and then I'm going to go to filter, render, lens flare, and I'm going to go to the 105mm prime, and I'm going to position the lens flare at the top of the photo. So what this is going to do is just give me a nice glow at the top of the waterfall. So before we do anything, I'm going to get rid of these artifacts here. So I'm going to use the lasso tool, encircle it, right click, fill, content aware, and hit OK. And basically we're just going to go around and get rid of all these artifacts here so they don't show up in the photo. So we'll just give that a second. Beautiful. And then we'll just go around and take all these artifacts out. Alright, beautiful. So then after you've done that, you're going to go back to your layer here, and you're going to right click, go to blending options, and then you're going to change the blend mode to screen. That's basically going to remove that black, and then you hit OK. And then what I like to do with this lens flare is I like to go to adjustments and apply a warming filter to it. And then I'm going to bring the opacity of that warming filter down to about 35%. That way it's not too intense. And then I'm going to go down to the lens flare layer and bring that down. And I like to be subtle about these things, so I'm going to do 18%. So you could tell that it just very subtle, nice glow at the top of this waterfall. So it looks pretty good. So that's it for Photoshop. So I'm going to save this. And then I'm going to go back into Lightroom. And there's one last thing that we're going to do. So back into Lightroom here. And here is the TIFF file. And I'm just going to crop it now. And I'm just going to crop it in. And I want to lose some of this big rock here. So I'm going to crop it into about right there. It looks pretty good. And that's it. That's the final photograph that I showed you guys in the video. So yeah, I do have a couple other images I shot here, which will be in a different video, but these are actually the ones that I prefer, and it's a focus stack. But I will cover that in another video because that's a whole different story. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Be sure to like and subscribe if you did, because there's definitely more to come, more photography adventures, more on location videos and tutorials. So that's gonna do it. So thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you in the next one.